Eldrin had witnessed the birth of stars and their inevitable deaths. He had soared through nebulae that painted the void in colors no living species could name, and he had watched empires rise and crumble across 100 worlds. For 73 millennia, the ancient dragon had been the universe's silent observer, a creature of such immense power that even the Confederation's most advanced warships would register him as a spatial anomaly rather than a living being. But now, as he lay in the crystalline caverns of Theta Serpentis IV, Eldrin felt the weight of eternity pressing down upon his scales. They had dulled from their once brilliant sapphire to the color of storm clouds, and the cosmic fire that had once burned in his chest had reduced to barely a flicker. He had chosen this remote moon specifically for its solitude. No colonies, no mining operations, no curious explorers. Just ancient ice and silence. It was time. Time to close his eyes and let the universe continue without him. The Confederation had long since forgotten about dragons. Most species considered them myths, stories told by primitive cultures trying to explain natural phenomena. Only the eldest archives contained any reference to his kind, and those were sealed away in data vaults that would never be accessed. Dragons had simply faded from galactic memory, which was exactly how Eldrin preferred it. He had not expected the human ship to crash. The impact shook the cavern, sending cascades of ice crystals raining down from the ceiling. Eldrin's ancient eyes opened slowly, irritation flickering through his fading consciousness. Could they not even grant him peace in death? He could sense the vessel's distress beacon screaming into the void, the reactor going critical, the life support systems failing one by one. He should have ignored it. He had ignored countless catastrophes before. What were a few more deaths in a universe already drowning in them? But something made him listen closer. Among the dying crew's final gasps and the ship's mechanical death rattles, there was another sound, small, terrified, young. A child was crying. Eldrin's massive head lifted from the cavern floor, his senses dulled by his preparation for death, sharpened with ancient instinct. The child was human, barely 8 solar cycles old if Eldrin's knowledge of their species was accurate. The boy was trapped in the wreckage, hypothermia already setting in, calling out for parents who would never answer. The dragon's eyes closed again. Not his concern. Humanity was just another species in an endless parade of civilizations. Let them save their own. But the crying continued, so small, so afraid. With a groan that sounded like tectonic plates shifting, Eldrin rose. His wings, vast enough to eclipse moons, unfurled stiffly. He had not moved in 6 months, and every muscle protested. The cosmic fire in his chest guttered dangerously, barely enough to keep his massive form alive, let alone perform a rescue. He found the ship easily, a mangled Confederation scout vessel, its hull split like overripe fruit. The reactor was indeed going critical, radiation levels climbing exponentially. Eldrin's scales absorbed the lethal energy without concern. What would kill a human in minutes was barely warmth to him. The boy, Tobin Ray, according to the ship's fragmented records, was pinned beneath a collapsed bulkhead in what had once been the living quarters. He had stopped crying now, too weak, too cold. His vital signs were failing. Eldrin carefully peeled away the wreckage with one massive claw, each movement precise despite his deteriorated state. The boy was so fragile, so impossibly small. The dragon could have swallowed him whole without noticing. As Eldrin lifted Tobin from the wreckage, cradling him in his foreclaw, the boy's eyes fluttered open. They should have widened in terror. Every species Eldrin had ever encountered reacted with fear when they first saw him, an appropriate response to meeting a creature that could level cities. But Tobin Ray did not scream. His small freezing hand reached out and touched Eldrin's scales. "Warm," the boy whispered. "You're so warm." And then he smiled. Something ancient and forgotten stirred in Eldrin's chest. The cosmic fire, which had been guttering toward extinction, suddenly flared, not with rage or power, but with something the dragon had not felt in millennia. Purpose. Tobin's touch was impossibly gentle, filled with pure wonder rather than fear. The boy saw him not as a monster or a myth, but simply as someone who had saved him. In that moment, pressed against Eldrin's scales, Tobin trusted him completely. The dragon, who had been ready to embrace oblivion, felt something crack inside his ancient heart. He wrapped his wings around the boy, sharing his warmth, his fire. The reactor exploded behind them, but Eldrin's body shielded Tobin from the blast. When the Confederation rescue ships arrived 3 hours later, they found an impossible sight. A child sleeping peacefully against the chest of a creature that should not exist, while that creature's eyes watched the stars with renewed clarity. The rescuers approached cautiously, weapons ready, but Eldrin made no hostile moves. He simply transferred the sleeping boy to their care, watching as they rushed him to medical treatment. As the ships prepared to leave, young Tobin Ray woke in the medical bay. He pressed his face against the viewport, searching until he found Eldrin's massive form in the cavern below. The boy placed his small hand against the glass. Eldrin raised one massive claw in acknowledgement. The dragon did not return to his deathbed. Instead, he spread his wings and launched himself into the void, cosmic fire blazing brighter than it had in centuries. Galaxies still burned, empires still rose and fell, but somewhere in that vast universe, a human boy had touched an ancient dragon and reminded him why life was worth living. Eldrin had forgotten that sometimes the smallest beings carried the greatest light. He would not forget again.